Welcome back, everyone. I am the Depressed Dior, and this is Middara. Alright, so a few things I went ahead and did off screen is I went ahead and grabbed a few dice. I also went ahead and set up the character names here. We're not going to really need to keep up with too much except for the gold and our score, which I went ahead and added the notes, our MAST score. It does glitch out for some reason, but we'll be able to see it when we need to. And like I said, I mentioned the dice. Essentially based the dice picking based off what dice we're going to be using for attacking, skill checks, as well as empowering and things like that. Usually I kind of give a pile of dice in front of each character just so they have their own stuff to keep track of, but since I'm playing by myself, I think I'll just try one pile and see if that works. The only things to note on the very first round is everybody starts with 3 stamina points. The way stamina points work is you can see here you start with 3, and then as you take actions you'll deplete them, and at the start of your next turn you will gain 3 stamina points up to a max of 5. There are 6 slots up here just simply because there is a character that can have up to 6. Each of the characters have their own unique traits as well as their own unique, they call them skills in this game. Even though most games would refer to these as stats, they are skills. Whenever rolling something like a strength check that was mentioned before, you would roll 2 purple die and add the strength, the value of your strength. In this case, for Zeke, it would be 4. For Nightingale, it would be 2. And for Rook, it would be 6. Because he's a big boy. Alright, so we kind of gotten started. Like I said, we all start with 3 stamina points. I'll go over kind of the details about each character as we play them, and kind of what we're going to be doing throughout the stuff. One last thing I'll go ahead and talk about is if you play this game kind of like XCOM, where you're trying to just pass turns and doing like Overwatch or something like that, this game has a kind of a time mechanic where if you've done no damage, no monsters spawned, no monsters acted, and no damage was dealt to you or something like that, essentially that means the game will assume you're stalling at that point. And if you're stalling, they'll start giving you things called urgency tokens. And if you get, I think, 4 urgency tokens, you automatically fail the encounter. For the most part, they don't really introduce urgency. They don't mention urgency counters until after the MAST, but it's a good thing to know of ahead of time. So you can't just sit there and just take one step at a time until you gradually trigger the totem or something like that. So, with all that said and done, let's go ahead and begin. Like we've already done the initiative track, so we get to start with Remi. So Remi's over here. Alright, so she starts out with 2 throwing knives in the juice box for our consumables. So the way this works is throwing knives, all you have to do is discard it, and you'll just get to roll a purple die, and whatever number you get on top is how much physical damage you do to the target. It's really useful because essentially you don't have to worry about actually hitting the target, it's just a flat damage. The only thing that throwing knives are not very good against is things with armor. And then the Vitality Juice Box is discard, and you can either heal yourself or an adjacent ally for 3. As you see, there's flavor text, just like a real ninja, and then a glass bottle is actually a terrible idea. We'll be getting more of these consumables as we go along, and probably going to be using them. It's a good idea to make sure you use them, because they are there to be used. Anything else of note? Well, let's talk about the characters themselves, I guess the gear setup. So we start out with an ability core. What the ability core does is in order, at the top is the name of the ability, or the name of the item. Below that, in the bottom, or the top right there, where it says ability core, just tells you what type of item it is. In this case, it's a core designed for abilities. The little pile of gold and the number represents how much that item is worth in a shop. So that's how much you would have to pay to buy it. The little symbol there, those symbols will usually represent how your actual stats will be manipulated. In this game, your stats are essentially your health, your defense, your movement, and in some cases, your armor. Movement is pretty self-explanatory. When you take a move action, you'll be able to move that many steps. Movement in this game is orthogonal, so no diagonals unless an ability says otherwise. But everything else, such as like finding the range of your attacks and things like that, can be diagonal. So that is something to kind of be aware of. Something to note about the throwing item, you probably are wondering what the range of the weapon is. Anytime it's a spell or a throw or something like that, unless it says otherwise, it's going to be based off your SOI, also known as Sphere of Influence. Your Sphere of Influence is essentially 4. And like I mentioned before, you can count diagonals. The only time you cannot count diagonals is with movement. So, in the case of Remi here, her sphere of influence is 1, 2, 3, and this blocks it. Anything that has a red outline is obstructing terrain, and you cannot actually see through it. You can't attack through it, stuff like that. So sphere of influence would actually be blocked by all this stuff here. But essentially, like if this thing was actually a creature, its sphere of influence would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and it does include diagonals, so it essentially becomes kind of like a square of influence that kind of just spans all the way out to here. So it could be pretty big. It could be a bit misleading how much range you actually have. Anyway, so talking about the back to the ability core, there's health, defense, and movement here, and you can see that the icons do match the symbols that you get here. So this ability core actually gives you +1 defense. Defense in this game is essentially like your armor class. Essentially, you need to meet or beat someone's defense to actually hit them, and once you hit them, then you calculate damage. This ability core does have an ability. It's called exhaust. You can exhaust it to do a counter. When the countering is what you can do if an attack either misses you or it does no damage to you. And whenever you counter, you'll interrupt anything else that's following up and essentially attack back. It's also an action you can take on your card if you look on here. Towards the bottom it says counter. If you spend 2 stamina, you can, when an attack deals no final damage, counter the attack. If this attack was successfully dodged, reduce the cost of the counter by 1. So if you had spent a stamina point or otherwise dodged, and you successfully avoid the attack, your counter only would cost 1 instead of 2. Over here we have armor. She has an occult shirt. There are multiple tiers of armor. There's cloth, leather, heavy, and plate. Cloth tends to be the main benefit of cloth is it usually gives you access to dodging. Ready access to a dodge also gives you additional movement. As you can see, it gives you no armor, gives you 3 health and +1 movement. So Remi actually has a movement of 7, not 6. And then it has the added ability of exhausting. Like I mentioned, exhausting is usually you just tap it, and then exhausted cards get refreshed at the start of your turn. And then it has a passive effect where if you're dodging, as long as you don't roll a skull, you get an additional armor defense as a result, essentially. Whenever you roll a dodge, essentially you will be rolling a black die, which is this here, and you would add any shields to your defense for that attack. And that's pretty much the gist of it. Now, her discipline. Now, disciplines can be a variety of things. They can be spells, they can be combat maneuvers. They're essentially kind of like a hot bar if you're playing something like World of Warcraft or something along those lines. For Remi, she has a martial ability called Hammer Helm. Now, Hammer Helm has 2 effects. The first one being, also it shows you what level it is. There's 4 tier levels of each of the discipline paths, but you always would start, whenever you're picking disciplines, you always start with the lowest level, and then you can build up to the higher levels. Hammer Helm has the ability passive, which is your attacks gain +1 physical damage. So as long as she hits, she will always do an additional physical damage. And then she can exhaust it. When making an attack, a melee attack, if you have a 2-handed weapon equipped, you may re-roll any dice in your combat dice pool. So if you rolled really bad on your combat dice pool, you have the essentially another chance to roll higher. Speaking of her weapon is a 2-handed weapon. She has a war axe. So again, there's the names, the types, the cost, and then these 2 cubes here represent what dice you roll. Whenever she makes an attack action with this war axe, she would roll 2 white die and add the results together. And then if there's any symbols on it, those can also have additional effects. The hand here represents how many hands it requires to wield. This one requires 2 hands. And then this little symbol here represents it's a melee weapon. This axe also has an exhaust ability. You can still use this axe even if it's exhausted, by the way. It's just the ability that can't be used again. When determining damage of an attack, this weapon gains book +1 physical damage until the attack is resolved. So if you look at the die here, you can see there's symbols. There's a shield and a book here. So this here would be a 5 value, and then you can actually spend those shields and books to do things like that are on the card. So for example, this war axe, every shield you can spend it to increase the physical damage by 1. Every star you can spend to get a physical damage +1. Also, when you're determining damage, if you exhaust this, you'll be able to add the books to the damage. So that's kind of the neat thing about it. All right, that's pretty much it for Remi. Actually, she has 2 special abilities, by the way. She has Shady Trading, which is she spends 1 stamina and exhausts this ability, and you get to move 1 space in any direction, including diagonally. Remi's Shady Pass has given her insight. And then her second ability is called Avian Flight. Remi is gifted with feather wings that allow her to fly. She can spend 2 stamina to make a move action. So instead of doing your standard move action, you can just spend that cost 1. You can do a 2 cost, where she has flight for the duration of this movement. This ability may only be used if Remi has less damage than half her HP total. So if she's really beat up, she'll be too weak to fly. Flight is very, very awesome, very unique. Allows her to fly over pits and enemies safely. The neat thing about flight also is you can kind of avoid break attacks, which are kind of like attacks opportunity. The only catch is flight only does not prevent the one that you get from leaving a tile. If you start your flight in a threatened tile, that will still provoke. All right, so that's it for Remi. Like I said, it's a little slow because I have to explain kind of what the characters do. But let's go ahead and take her turn right now. So she has 3 stamina. Like I mentioned before, you'll usually gain 3 stamina at the start of your turn, but you don't do it for the first round because you automatically start with the 3. So I'm going to go ahead and spend 1 stamina to go ahead and move. One thing to note about movement is it's essentially an all or nothing thing. Once you start a move, the move won't end until you actually end it. Once you've done a move action, you cannot do another move action for that round. Now you can still do other things that do movements, but not another actual specifically. You can't do the standard action move. So this also applies to her flight. Her flight counts as a standard action move. So if she does Avian Flight, she can't just spend another one to do a regular move. Now, something else to note about movement. You move up to your maximum movement value. For each additional stamina spent, add 2 to your movement value. Important adventures are limited to 1 move action per turn. So like I mentioned, you only get 1 move action, but if I wanted to, I could spend extra stamina as I'm moving to increase the amount of movement points I have. So, with all that said and done, let's go ahead and get started. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now there's some terrain here. This is This is difficult terrain. Difficult terrain you can go into safely, but going out of a difficult terrain tile will cost an additional movement. The other thing is if you attack through difficult terrain, it does put a -1 penalty to your attack. And any attacks that are going into difficult terrain, like if you were standing here and you got attacked, would also get a -1 to attack. So it can be kind of defensive terrain as well. Anyway, so we want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've moved 5 steps, and we don't have line of sight of the totem just yet. But if I move down here, that should put me in line of sight. Yep. So at this point, I still have a movement point left, but all play stops because I have line of sight of that totem. As you approach the boulder in your path, a scurrying sound echoes from the other side of the chasm. Spawn 2 cave sickles on any normal terrain space adjacent to the blue totem. Your heart sinks as you hear skidding coming from behind you as well. You whirl around to find yourself facing 2 more cave sickles. Spawn 2 cave sickles on any unoccupied normal terrain on the south side of tile UM11. UM11, of course, is the starting tile here. Alright, so we get to bring out our first monster. So first things first, we're going to go ahead and search this. We need 4 cave sickles. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. And then we need the intelligent card for it. We'll need both of them. There are 2 of them. So here's this one and that one. We'll go over the cave sickle in a second. So we need to set 2 that are adjacent to the blue tile. Like I mentioned before, adjacency does count diagonals, so I can put 1 there. And then the second one goes here. Also at this point, we can go ahead and, once we complete this, we can go ahead and remove the totem. I'm just going to remove it now, though. Alright, and then the next one is orange. Now, it says to put it along the bottom here. Generally, whenever you're placing things and doing things involving the enemy, you generally pick the option that is worst for your opponent. I think the worst possible situation is actually down here. setting them both right here next to Nightingale. Alright, so they've been placed. I need to set up some health tokens, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I've already grabbed some dice for them. So we're going to grab some tokens, and we're just going to kind of line them up as best as we can. You can resize the cards if you need to. I usually do, but I think I'm going to just do it like this. That's fine. That'll work. So let's go ahead and zoom in on this. Alright, so there's the tabs above that are just numbered. That's just your way of keeping track of which cave sickle is which. It's also a way of keeping track of which one has status effects and so forth. In the top right, you can see it's an intelligent creature and it's swarm. The swarm keyword means that usually whenever you kill a monster, you would get a loot card. In the case of swarm cards, you do not get a loot card until you've defeated the entire card. So, for example, if I killed this number 4 cave sickle, that would be enough to get a loot card. But this one here, I would have to kill 1, 2, and 3 before I get a loot card. Alright, and then in the bottom right, you can see the stats. It has 6 health, 8 defense, 6 movement, 0 armor, and its base combat dice are 2 white dice. Over on the bottom left, you have conviction and casting. Cave sickles do not have spells, so they have no casting die. And the conviction die essentially is what you roll whenever resisting magic, status effects, so forth. So if you get hit with something that causes like knockback, you would use conviction to resist it. In their case, they roll a white and a purple. As for the dice, by the way, there are kind of multiple tiers, and they're kind of split up a bit. The further down the colors, the higher the results get, and then they're kind of divided up based off dice that favor shields over dice that favor books. Alright, but usually the lowest is purple, and what's highest is kind of seen as usually blue or gray. Alright, anyway, with all that said and done, let's keep going. So cave sickles, you can see they have their passive abilities. Cave sickles have sickles anemone. The cave sickle has immunity poison, and movement cost is not increased by terrain or allies. So like I mentioned before, that difficult terrain there, they can actually move in and out of it freely. And also, if you ever move through a friendly square, you can't stop on a friendly square, but you can move it through it. And if you move through it, exiting that tile is just like leaving difficult terrain, so it costs an extra movement point. But for cave sickles, they get to ignore it. And then they have Hive Mind, which is cave sickles, combat dice, and defense change depending on how many cave sickles are within SOI. So, for example, this cave sickle here, if you take its SOI, which is blocked by the terrain here, there's only one other cave sickle that's nearby. So instead of rolling 2 white die for a combat die, it actually does the 1 here, which is 1 white die and an orange die. And as they get closer together, they'll get stronger and stronger, and their dice will get better, and they get free empowerment, and then more defense, and it just gets pretty messy. These guys are pretty much the easiest monster, but they can still be very, very dangerous. And then below that, it has essentially their AI. And the way it works is when they go through their turn, a player will control this thing, and they'll start from the top and go down the bottom, and they'll keep going until they've accomplished essentially a requirement. So in this case, it'll check to see if it's adjacent. If it is, it'll do this. It'll check to see if there's someone with range 4. If there is, it'll do that. And if none of those applied, it'll check to see if it can move and attack someone within range 4. And if it can, it will do it. If it can't do any of it, it will not do anything at all. There are some ways to get around it, that sort of limitation, but if there's like a situation where the AI just can't seem to function right and you're hitting it, there is a backup thing that can happen that'll force it to move. But in this case, for the most part, if it can't get to you, it's just going to sit there. All right. Now, something to note about cave sickles is we need to add them to the initiative. Base rules is whenever anything gets added to the board, their initiative gets immediately added right after the person that activated it. So it'll be this one, like so. All right. So that's the situation. All right. And then, with all said and done, kind of see what my options are right now. I have 1 point of movement left still. So at this point, the totems, we've resolved the totem. I could continue my movement. Unfortunately, I'm trying to see if there's anything I can do with Remi to help out. The only thing I could possibly do is I can spend some more of my my stamina to increase my movement. and I think I'm going to have to do that. So every additional point of stamina I spend adds 2 to my movement value. I'm going to check real quick to make sure I can actually do more than 1, because I didn't know I can actually do more than 1. Alright, so the only catch about this is I have to finish my, I can't add it until I've accomplished my initial move. So right now I've moved 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to move 1 more to 7. Alright, my movement there has been spent. I can now spend additional SP to move additional spaces. I'm going to spend 2 to move 4 spaces. Go 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to go ahead and draw some fire, essentially. Alright. With that, that's the end of Remi's turn. She has no stamina left and has no end of turn abilities. So, goes to Cave Sickles 1 through 3. So I have to start with Cave Sickle 1 first. And let's go ahead and go through the steps here. Here's the red one. There's nothing adjacent. There is nothing within range 4. And remember, obstructing terrain does block it. And then, as for movement, can it move and attack opponent within range 4? It has a movement of 6. And then there's this. It can't go through obstructing terrain, and it can't. It can jump over pits, but only if they're 1 space wide, unless it says otherwise. These are 2 space wide pits, from what we can tell, so it can't reach anybody. So this red sickle is not going to do anything. This purple cave sickle is even further away, so I'm just going to go say it can't do anything either. And then we go to orange, which is over here. Now it says, is there any opponent adjacent? There are. There is Nightingale, and then we got Remi. Now, whenever picking a target, you pick whichever one is furthest up the initiative counter. So between Remi and Nightingale, Remi is furthest up the initiative counter, so she will be targeted. So what it says is it's going to make a melee attack against the opponent with the most damage. Well, both of them are equal. So in this case, like I mentioned before, if there's a situation where everything is equal, you pick the person that's the highest in initiative. And then it says FU, which is follow-up, make an attack against the same target, and then this follow-up attack has FU, make an attack against the same opponent. So this attacking opponent, the way follow-ups work is if the attack hits, it doesn't have to do damage, it just has to hit, and it doesn't get interrupted in some other way. You can do the follow-ups, which could be anything from doing additional effects like poison, or another attack entirely. So in this case, this thing could potentially do 3 attacks right now. It's going to target Remi. I have to declare if I'm going to dodge. Now, dodging usually costs 1 stamina, but I do have this occult shirt here, where I can exhaust it to do a dodge. And if I successfully dodge the attack, I can immediately counter. So I'm going to go ahead and spend this occult shirt. And the way dodging works is we just roll this black die here. So I'm going to go ahead and roll it. Alright, now something to note about this occult shirt is when making a dodge, if you don't roll a skull, you add 1 shield to the result. What we have here is 4 shields, so we add shield to the result. That is 5 shields, so 5 defense. We have a defense of 9 plus 1 from the ability core, so we go from 9 to 10 to 15 defense from that dodge. And this cave sickle here is going to be rolling a white and an orange die because there's somebody nearby. So we're going to go ahead and roll these 2 dice here. 6. We didn't even need to dodge it. Just our base defense would have avoided that. But we did successfully dodge it. That means there's not going to be a follow-up or anything like that. But we can also immediately counter because we successfully dodged the attack. So now we get to swing our War Axe back at it. So we're going to go ahead and roll 2 white die. We got an 8. 8 is just... Their defense is 8, so we actually just barely hit it. If I want to, I can go ahead and do any extra damage that's on top of it, or I can use the hammer helm here to go ahead and re-roll any dice. I'm going to go ahead and spin this. Right now, if I had kept it as is, I would have done 2 damage. I would have done 1 damage because of the hammer helm passive, and then we had 1 shield we could have spent. We also could have done up to 3 damage if we exhausted this. We're not going to exhaust it. Instead, we're going to exhaust this and re-roll any dice in the combat dice pool. So we have a 5 and a 3. I'm just going to re-roll the 3. Alright, 7 is the highest number we can get on a white die, so we have 12 in total now. So the way this works is defense So you get the total attack total, and then you subtract the defense. As long as you meet or beat the defense, it is a hit. It is a hit. When it's a hit, you go ahead and subtract the defense from your total. So we have a total of 12. Subtract 8 from that, brings it down to 4. And then we could spin the symbols that we have here, which I'm just going to make a copy here. I was going to try to keep one pile of dice, but I think it's just better if we have multiple piles. So we're just going to do that. So we had a 5 and a 7. Every shield we have, we could spend to get +1 physical damage, and every burst we got will give us +1 damage. So right now we're doing 4 damage base, 5 damage because of Hammer Helm, and then we can just spin shields. So 1, 2, 3, and then we have a burst, that's another 4. So we're doing 9 damage right now. If we want to, we can do 11, but that's just way overkill. These things only have 6 HP. So that was the orange one that attacked. So we did 9 damage to it. That kills it. And we're just going to go ahead and remove it. Now, this card still has more monsters on it, so we can't draw any loot cards yet. But the fact that we countered it and killed it means that this next Cave Sickle is only going to roll 2 white die because there are no other Cave Sickles nearby. So we got that going for us. Alright, that resolves the first Cave Sickle 1 through 3. Next is Cave Sickles 4 through 6, which is just that teal one. Again, same things. There is an adjacent. It's going to go after the person with most damage, which is none of them, so it's going to be a tie. It's going to go after Remi, because Remi's furthest along the initiative. Now, I can't dodge anymore. I don't have any stamina. I don't have any other ways of dodging. So it's just going to be those white dice against her defense. And we'll see what happens. Okay, 5 in total. That is a miss. If the attack does no damage, I can still counter if I have a way of countering. It would have been 2 stamina because I didn't dodge, or I have this ability core here which has a exhaust counter ability. So I'm going to go ahead and exhaust it and counter. Now, one other thing about attacking. In the case of players, you have the option to spend another stamina point to roll essentially the black die here. And the black die, all it has on it is symbols and a skull. If you roll a skull whenever you're empowering an attack, it automatically misses. So it's a risk versus reward thing. The reward, of course, is you get a ton of symbols that you can use to boost your damage. So like a bunch of shields to boost your damage, a bunch of books to boost spells. But of course, there's a 1 in 6 chance that your attack will just flat out fail no matter what roll you got. I don't have the stamina to actually empower, so I'm not going to worry about it. So we're just going to roll 2 white die here. Alright, we got a total of 9. This does hit a Cave Sickle because it has a defensive 8. So 9 minus 8, we're at 1 damage base, 2 damage because of Hammer Helm, 4 damage because of the shields, 5 damage because of the Starburst, and if I exhaust this War Axe, I could take that book and do another damage for a total of 6, which is enough to kill it. Now at this point, since that completes an entire card, I get to go ahead and shuffle and draw our first mundane loot. This here is 8 gold, so we're just going to go ahead and set that to the side. And we get to note that we gained 8 gold. Depending on the loot level, that decides how high and low the gold can get. I believe the lowest right now is 4, and the highest I think is maybe 8 or 9. Anyway, that takes care of all the Cave Sickle rounds. Also, this card is completely done, so we get to remove 4 through 6. We don't need it anymore. Alright. And then it goes straight to the next person, which is Rook. So, Rook it's the first round, so he has his stamina already. Now, Rook has his own kind of setup here. He does start out with a Hyper Energy HP Potion, which is an I can. You can discard an ally with an SOI heals 3 and gains 1 stamina point. So this is just something you can literally spray on somebody from a distance. And then there's Magic Balm, which can be remove an effect from an ally within a sphere of influence. This will remove things like poison, paralysis, etc. And you got it has 752 milligrams of caffeine, like the stuff on Earth, but it works. Rook himself, he has super high strength. He has highest strength, highest lore. Remi has the highest agility at 6. And then his special ability is grants a physique, which is a passive. Rook's advancement granted him an unearthly amount of stamina and strength. Advancement is essentially the transformation he went through. Rook's unmodified maximum HP is 14, which is 2 higher than a normal character. He can equip an additional consumable. As mentioned, there's 3 consumable slots, but he actually has 4. And then he has the ability to ignore the negative movement penalty that you take from the first instance of heavy he has equipped. So here over in these Warhammers, he has 2 Warhammers, 1 in each hand. Each are a white die. Each are one-handed. Each are melee. There are also keywords like Blunt and Warhammer, which can apply to various things. The special abilities of Warhammers, they can be exhausted to provide Empower. So instead of spending a stamina point, he can just exhaust to get the roll the black die. Of course, there's a chance he can miss, essentially. And then there's this thing called Combo. Combo, the way it works is it takes into account other pieces of gear in your equipment. In this case, it's Warhammer and Shield. So his other weapon is a Warhammer, just like his other one. So this combo will actually activate. And the effect is +1 armor. Every point of armor will reduce physical damage by an equal amount. And heavy. This ability does not stack with another Warhammer. So it mentions this because in most cases, if it has a combo on both weapons and they apply to each other, they do work. But this is an exception to the rule where only one of them applies. And it syncs well with his ability because, of course, he ignores the first instance of heavy. There's only one instance of heavy, so he doesn't actually suffer a movement penalty. Otherwise, he would have to spend additional... if he had the additional heavy, he would... excuse me. Alright, sorry about that. My throat just went really dry for a second there. Alright, so, about heavy. What heavy usually does is it'll reduce your movement by 1, and I think you can't, like, sprint or something like that, or can't jump. There's some other penalties for it. I can probably look it up, actually. Let's look it up. It'll be up here, actually, 31. Down here. So, heavy. A figure with a stag may reduce movement from current effects and abilities by 1, meaning that free movement granted by your own discipline will be affected by heavy if you want them to be. However, adventurers with heavy must incur a -1 to their total movement value and a -1 penalty to their agility. This tag is cumulative and can have its effect occur from more than one source. This means that adventurers with heavy on 2 different items must incur a -2 to their movement. It does have some beneficial effects. It limits how much they get pushed around by movement effects. But having reduced movement generally sucks. So yeah, the way it works is it's a movement penalty overall, and it does stack. But since, like I mentioned before, there's only one heavy, and he ignores the first one. All right, so he has a Deflection Core. This one, pretty much all the cores provide at least 1 plus to your defense, so it's your standard AC item. This one has a special ability called Conviction Upgrade White, and then it has a flip effect of when making a conviction check, you can auto-pass it. So like mentioned before, if I ever have to make a conviction check, instead of rolling, I can just flip this and auto-pass, but it won't flip back over until I refresh. Now, Conviction, as you can see here, all characters start with a Conviction of 2 purple die and a casting die of purple as well. In the case of Rook, though, since he has a Conviction upgrade, instead of rolling 2 purples, he would roll a white and a purple. And like I mentioned before, Convictions for resisting things like poison, magic, etc. Alright, final thing to point out as far as his gear is concerned is he has a cuirass. Cuirasses, of course, are the heavy armors. It provides 2... It doesn't provide any extra movement, but it does provide +2 armor and +2 health. And once per encounter, he can ignore all physical damage dealt to you from an attack. So he can just shrug off a blow, essentially. So with the combo effect from the Warhammers and the cuirass, he actually has an armor of 3, which means every time he takes physical damage, he reduces it by 3. He's essentially a tank. And then his discipline here is Mend. It's a Sanctus discipline, which is generally like holy type magic. Once per encounter, gain 2 heal tokens. So I can just do this, used, and I get 2 heal tokens. I'm going to put them on the card just to show that I have them. And the tokens themselves is I can discard them, spend 1 stamina, and a figure within SOI heals 6. Healing 6 is a rather large amount since most people here have around 12 health. Well, around 14 health if you count gear. Now, the passive effect that Mend has is when these tokens are spent to heal an ally other than yourself, gain 1 stamina point. So, as long as he has a stamina point to spend initially, if he casts heal on somebody else, it is essentially free. He is essentially your big hulking paladin guy. Alright, so with all that said and done, let's go ahead and continue. Rook is going to go next. So we're going to spend a stamina point to move. He moves 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I can spend additional movement stamina if I want to move extra. At this point, I do not want to move extra. There's not really a benefit. I will not be able to reach this thing in time. With his high strength, he is pretty much the prime candidate to move this thing out of the way. Alright, next, after Rook, now, like I mentioned before, stamina does carry over. So next round, he's going to actually have 5 stamina, which is the max. Alright, next is Nightingale. Alright, so Nightingale was the person that Remi went and helped out, because otherwise she would have been ganged up on. And she has the highest presence, probably because she's a princess. Her special ability is called Ambitious. Once per encounter, Nightingale's commanding presence makes her a natural leader. All other allies get +1 stamina. Nightingale herself gains +2 stamina. This is really, really, really good, and I've seen videos of people who just never use this ability. It helps so much. Another 2 stamina is essentially another attack, if you want to. And just giving everyone +1 stamina can essentially make a character able to dodge when they weren't able to originally. As always, though, be careful about giving stamina that ends up being wasted. Just, because the cap is 5. Standard stats 12, 9, 6. And then she has her items. Vitality Juice Box we already know about. MF Fortitude is an alcohol potion. At any time, discard to gain +1 stamina. It says at any time, so you can actually use it outside your turn, which can be helpful. So if you run into trouble and need a stamina point immediately, you can just drink this. This ain't just Fortitude. Now, she has 2 weapons. 2 different weapons in this case. She has a longsword, which is a sword, longsword, and double. Now, what double means is it actually has a different setup on the opposite side. A longsword can be wielded one-handed, which you can see here is 1 die, one-handed melee. Or you can use the opposite side, which is 2 white die, 2-handed melee, and has its own effects. Now, the way you would switch the sides is there's an action called re-equipping, and re-equipping will allow you to move things around. You can put things in your pack, take things out of your pack. You can take items from other people that are adjacent to you, and that would be actually an opportunity for you to switch your gear around. So if, for whatever reason, you just don't want to deal with the magic talisman, you can be like, all right, I put it in my pack, and I'll flip this to 2-handed. So that's an option you have. But by default, you start with the one-handed version. So the one-handed version is white die, but it has combo light, and it will provide finesse orange. Now, what finesse does is it essentially upgrades the combat die for it. Now, her other weapon is, if you look at the keywords, there's Spellcraft, Talisman, and Light. So it is a light weapon, so it combos, which means instead of rolling this white die, she would actually roll an orange die. And then her other item, of course, uses a purple die. So instead of doing white-purple, she would do orange-purple. Her other combo is if she had a sword in her other hand, she would actually do +1 physical damage. And if she had a long sword in her other hand, her attacks would get a burst +2 physical. So she can spend burst to actually increase her damage even further. Just to show off the 2-handed version. 2-handed version is you may counter the first attack that doesn't deal damage or misses you each round. So essentially you get a free counter against only the first attack. And then this card may not have more than 1 upgrade. So upgrades generally is if it's a one-handed weapon, it gets only 1 slot for an upgrade. If it's a 2-handed weapon, it gets 2 slots. Since a longsword can be used 2-handed, this is just a note that even though it's 2-handed, it still only has 1 slot. And then you can see that the symbols change a little bit. Standard one-handed longsword has every 2 shields gives you +2 physical, and then if you are using it 2-handed, you still have that shield bonus, but you also get a burst bonus with it as well. Her other weapon, which I'll go ahead and we kind of talked about a little bit, has a purple die. It's one-handed and it's melee and range. So if she had something like a hand crossbow, it would actually be able to, you can use it with a magic talisman. A lot of times things that are both are usually things like talismans and shields. So if you have a shield in your one hand and a crossbow in the other, you can actually use it ranged. And if it had just the arrow, that means it's ranged only. You can still use a ranged attack in melee, but you can't use it to do break attacks, and I don't think you can use it for countering. when making it, and then the passive effect for a Magic Talisman is when making an attack or casting a spell that targets an opponent, you have to empower. So the key word here is it flat out says you have to empower. So good news is it's free. Bad news is you don't get a choice. You have to empower, which means there's always that 1 in 6 chance that it will fail, whether it's attacking or casting a spell. If you roll a skull when casting a spell, it will not only fail, but it will do 3 damage to yourself as well from the backfire. As for the symbols, every 2 spellbooks does +1 magic damage. Now, magic damage is different from physical. Magic does bypass armor, which is a benefit, and then every burst will also increase the magic damage by 1. So essentially, Nightingale is the only character that has access to magic damage right now. Her defensive core has an exhaustibility of dodging. It does provide +1 defense like everything else. It also provides +2 health. I think Nightingale has the highest health in the group. Yeah, Rook has 16. I believe she has 17. She has an occult shirt just like Remi's, so we've already gone over it. It's just a different piece of art. And then for her discipline, she has Gore Shot, which is a Core spell. Core tends to be a lot of like blood type magic stuff. What you can do with Gore Shot is you can exhaust it, so you exhaust it once, and then you can cast a spell 6. Now what that means is you target something with an SOI, and you would roll whatever your casting die is. Right now her casting die is just a purple die, so she would roll 1 purple die. She would take this number here and add it to the spell, and that would be her total force value. And then her opponent will roll a conviction roll, and if their roll meets or beats my roll, they resist the spell. So in this case, if they had rolled a 7, they would resist it. Now remember, she has to empower. So whenever casting spells, you would roll this black die here. Any books that you roll get added to the force value. So the good news is empowering makes it a lot easier for you to actually get your spells through. One of the options you can do, I did do this in one of my playthroughs where I went ahead and just got rid of the Magic Talisman and went 2-handed. It's consistent in the fact that you get to just not worry about the black die at all, but it definitely makes your magic a lot easier to resist. And also just overall your damage gets a little bit lower. So Nightingale is very much a kind of a glass cannon risk reward type person where you're just going to try to get as many symbols out there as possible. Now, if your spell goes through, it just does a flat 2 magic damage. But you may deal 2 irreversible damage to yourself, which means it can't be reduced. To deal your additional magic damage equals to 2 times your highest level core discipline. Right now, the Gore Shot, her core level is 1. So if she does 2 damage, she can take 2 damage to do an additional 2 damage on top of it for 4. Which it may or may not sound like a lot. That's essentially like a third or 2/3 of a cave sickle, but it's magic damage, which means it bypasses pretty much everything unless they have some sort of resistance to magic. So overall, it's pretty neat. Alright, so enough rambling. Let's get going. So I'm going to go ahead and spend a point of movement, or spend a stamina to move. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, because I have to leave a friendly tile. 4, 5, 6, and she does have additional movement because of the occult shirt, so 7. So something like that. And then our last person is Zeke. Alright, so Zeke's got throwing knives, juice box, nothing special there. He has 2 short swords. They're swords, they're short swords, and they're light. So one thing you could do if you really want to mess around is you can actually swap one of these short swords for a long sword and kind of try to combo with that, which can do some interesting things as well. But anyway, short swords by themselves, like I mentioned, purple, one-handed melee. You can exhaust it to move 1 space diagonally, which is pretty cool. That's essentially that can be done outside his normal movement, so that's really, really useful. It's also diagonal, which means it pretty much counts as 2 movement points. One thing to note about moving diagonally, it does consider it you moving orthogonally still. So, for example, there's not really a good example here, is there? Not really. If there was like a situation like this, right here, and Zeke was right here, and doing a diagonal move here, he would still have to jump across this. And you wouldn't be able to do it and his diagonal movement wouldn't be able to go through this occupied square, or this obstructing square. So just something to note about diagonal movement. Anyway, the other thing is it has combo light, which short swords are light, so they do combo off of each other. It provides an additional ability that you can use that requires exhausting, which is you can re-roll 1 combat die. And then it gets finesse white. So what this means is these 2 short swords together are now rolling 2 white die instead of 2 purple. And then as for their symbols, shields, every pair of shields gives you 2 damage, every burst gives you 1 physical. Alright, pretty standard stuff. He has a leather armor, he has badass leather jacket. It provides +1 armor and 4 health. And then you can exhaust, whenever making a dodge, you can exhaust it to reroll a dodge. Now this doesn't give him a dodge, but it does give him the ability to reroll a dodge. And he has the ability to reduce any physical damage dealt to him by 2 if it's from a melee attack. And then his core is a utility core, gives 1 defense, and then has a conviction upgrade of white. And at any time, he can gain a single random consumable item from your loot level or lower. Right now, our loot level, if we actually look at the encounter itself, level is mundane right there. So, one thing I'm going to go ahead and do right now, because people tend to forget, I'm going to go ahead and flip this utility core and get a random mundane consumable. Now, due to the fact that the symbol, you can see kind of what card they are even on the back. Usually what you do is you'll shuffle and then you would take the card from the bottom. But since this is all digital, I'm just going to hit this. I'm going to hit shuffle once and take the top card. So shuffle and take the top card. So what I got here was a juice box. Now the way that, if you ever get an item during an encounter, you get a free re-equip action that doesn't cost you any stamina. So right now I could shuffle my gear around if I want to. I don't really want to change anything right now. I'm just going to go ahead and put the Vitality juice box into my pack and hold on to it for now. Alright, and then on the back of the card, it still provides Conviction or White, but this thing actually has an additional effect as well. At the start of an encounter, unflip this card. So despite it being a flip effect, it actually unflips at the start of every encounter, no matter what. So every encounter, you can just get a consumable, which adds up very, very quickly. And you'll find yourself in a situation where you have too many items. Alright, I haven't gone over his actual card yet, but I'll do that in a bit. Let's go ahead and go over his martial ability. He has Blade Works. If you have 2 one-handed weapons equipped, or 2 one-handed melee weapons equipped, you may make an attack. This will not cost him any stamina to use. So he has 2 one-handed melee weapons. He can just exhaust this to make an attack. Perfection comes through toil. And then his stat card, he has the highest perception. His passive ability, well, his unique ability is Nimble Fighter. Zeke's cautious nature helps him to adapt to any situation. Once per turn, Zeke may reroll his dodge roll. So, neat thing is he has a lot of ways of re-rolling dodge rolls. Bad news is he has to spend stamina to actually dodge, because he doesn't actually have any free dodges. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and spend 1 stamina to go ahead and move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I'm going to spend an additional stamina to move an additional 2. So 1, 2, because I had to step out of difficult terrain. And then I'm going to exhaust both of these short swords to move diagonally. So I'm going to do that and go 1, 2. Now something to note, if I were to do the diagonal movement through like terrain like this, it will not actually suffer any penalty. Because it's like it's essentially kind of free movement. Anyway, I am right now next to the obstructing terrain. I'm going to go ahead and spend. You can actually do what's called a encounter action, which costs 1 stamina. Counter actions include things like taking loot, or in this case, moving the movable rock. So I'm going to spend 1 stamina, which I'll use up the last of his stamina, and it's a strength roll. I have to make a strength 10 roll. So what I'm going to do here is copy that. In fact, let's just do that right now, just so I have it out of the way. There's your purples. Enjoy them. Okay, so roll 2 purple die and add his strength. He has a strength of 4, so it's not the worst. Unfortunately, I rolled a total of 8, and that means nothing happens. So I can't move it. And that is the end of the round. Obviously, damage was dealt, creatures were spawned, creatures were killed, so there's no urgency token, but I do need to pull out a time token to keep track of how much time we're taking to get through this. So we'll go ahead and reset this. Alright, Cave Sickles go first. Unfortunately, can they do something? Now the question is, can they do anything? Obstructing terrain's still in the way. They can't jump over. When they jump over stuff, they have to do one wide. Also, when moving around, AI will not purposely kill themselves. So, the red one goes first. Now, nothing's adjacent. Anything within range 4? Technically, no, because there's obstructing terrain here. But can it get somewhere to actually make an attack? No. So when measuring line of sight, it's center to center, which Tabletop Simulator makes it really easy to measure. Roll20 would also help. Yeah, it looks like there's just nothing. Just gonna have to wait until they get through this, the obstructing terrain. So this is actually really good for us. They can't do anything. They're just gonna pass action. Unless I can get to you. Ooh, that one I might have to measure. 1, 2, 3. No, actually it's outside 4, no matter what. So never mind. Okay, so yeah, that is it for Cave Sickles. They can't. The terrain is in the way. Now, if there was someone like over here in this area, they would be able to do range attacks at least. But yeah, they're kind of screwed right now. All right. Yeah, I believe they can only do 1 tile gaps. I'll check real quick to make sure. Okay, according to the rules, they will actually do a jump of up to 2 spaces, so they can actually try to jump these. So with that in mind, I have to make a jump. Now, jumping for players, it's a skill check. It's essentially an agility check. There's some modifiers you can add to it, and essentially, if you pass, you make it to where you need to jump. If you fail, you go to the first space that you that was on the path. In the case of if it's in the dangerous terrain, it will kill you, essentially, because you fail the jump, you fall down the pit, and you be defeated. But for intelligent combatants, all it is you roll a black die. If it's a skull, it's a fail, otherwise it's a pass. So I have to declare what the jump is. Now jumping can be in weird angles if you want to, so you can do like this weird one where it's like an L shape if you really want to. But I'm just going to jump across this way. So I need to roll a black die. Okay, I did not fail. And essentially you jump over those tiles. Now there's something called break attacks, which are very much like attacks of opportunity from Pathfinder and 3.5 Dungeons and Dragons, where if you leave a tile that's adjacent, it can provoke a break attack, and every figure can do a break attack once per turn. But since I'm jumping over those tiles, it's safe. Alright, so the jump was successful. Now, that means, is there an opponent adjacent? There wasn't. Is there an opponent within range 4? No. Can it move and attack an opponent within range 4? Yes. So move to be up to range 4 from the nearest opponent. It has movement 6. I've moved 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it says nearest opponent, so I'm just going to go... At this point, I would actually step away. So up to range 4. Well, like I said, you usually pick the worst thing. Here it says move to be up to range 4 from the nearest opponent. At this point, I would not move away. I believe that's how the wording goes. Now I need to check to see what's within SOI. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so still within range to get the hive mind. So it's going to be an orange and a white. Zeke has used up all of his stamina, so he cannot dodge or counter. So it's just going to be a straight up roll. Total of 7. Zeke has a defense of 10, just like everyone else, so it misses. I can't counter because I don't have anything that gives me a free counter. That takes care of that. And that is it. So yeah, I made a ranged attack. It was adjacent. Didn't really matter. And that is it for that. So next is the other cave sickle. It needs to make its own jump. So it's going to go 1, 2, and then it's going to jump all the way to here. So first I need to roll. Alright, good. And it goes to here, and it's going to go ahead and make its own attack. Same thing, orange and white, can't dodge. 12 in totals. This is going to be a hit. So first you subtract the defense from it, so it goes from 12 down to 2. So Zeke has a base of 9 for defense, and then he gets +1 because of the core, so that's why it's 10. So 2, and then if you look at the bottom, there's a little shield that says +1 physical damage, so every shield's going to do +1 physical. So it goes from 2 to 3 to 4. So 4 damage in total. I do have +1 armor from the Badass Leather Jacket, and I reduced physical damage dealt from physical melee attacks by 2. So I only take 1 damage because I reduce it by 3. And there you go, I increment it by 1, and he is now taking the first damage in the game. Alright, so that takes care of Cave Sickles. It now goes to Zeke's turn. Zeke will go ahead and get 3 stamina, and everything will get unexhausted. And then he gets to take his actions. So right off the bat, there are Cave Sickles all over here. So I'm going to go straight for the purple one first. So I'm going to go ahead and first exhaust my Blade Works and just make an attack, because I have 2 melee. Make a couple of these. Alright. I'm not going to empower. I'm just going to attack. Alright, so that is a total of 9. So it's going to hit, it's going to do base 1 damage, and then it's going to do another 2 because of the 2 shields. So a total of 3 damage. I did it to the purple one, so I'll just update it. And then I'll make a second attack against it. This time I'll spend the 2 stamina to actually attack. That's how much it takes to attack. Roll. Alright, so that's going to be a miss. I'm going to go ahead and exhaust one of these to re-roll a die. Alright, so that's 9 in total. And again, it's going to be a total of 3 damage, which is all I really need. So that's going to be enough to finish it off. So that is 1 dot gone. I'm going to go ahead and use the last stamina point to go ahead and make a strength check again. Alright, so it's 8 plus my strength, so that's a total of 12. I'm going to go ahead and move this off. I mean, I can move it any direction I want, but I'm going to go ahead and move it into the dangerous terrain and remove it from the board. Alright, and that is all of his stamina, so that is it for Zeke. It now goes to Rook. Rook will go up to 5 stamina. Still has his heals if he needs them. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and I'm just checking the line of sight here. It's a little iffy. Usually I don't count it if it goes to the corner like that, so no, not adjacent. I'm just going to go ahead and get line of sight here so I can attack. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's it for movement. Next, I'm going to spend 2 stamina to attack. Go ahead and paste my white dice. I'm going to go ahead and exhaust one of these to go ahead and empower it. Okay, so I'm going to roll empower die and 2 white dice here. That was kind of weird. I kind of clicked on it while I was rolling it. Alright, so 8 is exactly enough to hit it, but the damage is going to be base 0 now. And then I get 1 shield, 4 shields in total. So that's going to do a total of 4 physical damage to it. So 4 physical. And then I'm going to go ahead and do 1 more attack, and I will go ahead and exhaust this hammer to do another empower. And roll. Alright, 8 again, and with the shields, I do another 2 damage, because I can only do it in pairs. 2 damage is enough to finish it off, though. So that is all Cave Sickles dead, and we get to draw another mundane card. 9. So we get another 9 gold on top of it, bringing us to 17. Alright. Next, he's already done movement, and he has no stamina left, so it's going to go straight to Nightingale. Nightingale's going to go up to 5, and then she's going to go ahead and spend 1 to move. Alright, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then I'm going to go ahead and spend 1, 2, and go another 4 spaces, so 1, 2, 4. Not quite going to trigger that yet. I'm going to wait and let other people catch up. Next goes to Remi's last. So Remi's going to go ahead and get 3 stamina. Everything will get unexhausted. And that's it for her. So let's go ahead and spend her movement. I'm just going to end up... what I'm going to go ahead and do... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm just seeing what kind of my options are for movement. Yeah, so what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and spin 1 for movement. And go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and just stay there. And I'll leave her with 2 stamina left. Alright, there are no cave sickles on the board now, so we'll go ahead and reset initiative. Nightingale goes first. Alright, so Nightingale's going to go up to 5. And she's going to trigger some things. So first, she's going to go ahead and move. And trigger the Red Totem. As you peer around the corner, you see a handful of cave sickles skittering about. They spring into action when they notice you. The cave sickles are blocking the path that leads deeper into the cave. Spawn 2 cave sickles adjacent to the space this totem occupies. Across the gap, you see another cave sickle emerge near a small box. Spawn 1 more cave sickle adjacent to the blue loot token. So, whenever you're filling out creature cards, you always go in the order of any open slots. So in this case, it's going to be 1, 2, and 3. So 1, so adjacent to the totem, so there. As always, you put it in the worst possible place for the player. Put that there. Alright, so that's all of that. Resolves the Red Totem. We do have movement left if I want to move back, but it will provoke a break attack from both of them if I did it, so I'm not going to. Instead, I'm going to go ahead and go in swinging. Alright, so I get a orange die from the longsword and a purple die from the talisman, and I have to empower because I'm using a magic talisman. So here goes nothing. Alright, so I rolled 14 in total. 8 is the highest that you can get on an orange die, by the way. So, total of 14. That alone, against 8 defense, is 6 damage. But I'm going to go ahead and go through the math here. So, 6 damage. 7. Or every 2 gives you another 2 physical. So that we have 3, so that means it's going to do 2 additional. So we're up to 8 physical damage. Every 2 books gives it +1 magic damage, so that's going to be another 3 magic damage. So we're doing 7 physical, 3 magic, and then the burst will do 1 more magic damage. So we're doing 7 physical, 4 magic for a total of 11 damage to that cave sickle. I didn't say which one I was targeting, I was going to target red. Alright, so that's 1 dead. I'm going to go ahead and spend my last 2 stamina to attack again. Same thing, I have to roll the black die with it because I'm using a magic talisman. Alright, total of 13 still, so that's going to be 5 damage base, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 physical damage, and the 11 physical damage and 2 magic damage, so total of 13, which just flat out kills this thing. The one thing I didn't check, actually I didn't check one thing, let's go ahead and rewind real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, alright, so there are actually 2 cave sickles nearby. 2 cave sickles changes the damage dice to 2 orange, but it does not increase defense. So I still killed both of them. Even with the extra defense, it still would have killed them, but just something to point out. Now they're back down to white dice. Alright, that takes care of that. Also, they need to get added to the initiative. Right after Remi. Or not Remi, Nightingale. I have one more thing I can do. I can go ahead and exhaust Gore Shot. So I'm going to go ahead and do that just to show off Gore Shot. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember, you can count diagonals. So pretty much my range is like all the way here. All the way around this. So it's a pretty big square. So I'm going to be targeting this thing. It's going to get to roll its conviction. But first I need to roll my casting die plus my empower because I have to empower because of the magic talisman. So roll both. Alright, so 2 plus 2 books is 4, spell is 6, so it's 10 in total, and then it gets to roll a purple and a white. If you look at the bottom, conviction, white, purple, pretty standard stuff. Also, we forgot to do a time token, so I'm just going to do that now. He rolls a 13, so he completely resists the spell, it does nothing. So, that resolves the spell. also gets exhausted. And that is it for all of that. One thing I can do is I'm going to go ahead and use my Ambitious and get 2 additional stamina points. I've already moved. I'm not going to do anything else with it. But this is just to give the others 1 stamina to play with. Okay. After Nightingale, it goes Cave Sickle. So for the Cave Sickle, first thing I need to check for is there are no opponents adjacent. Is there an opponent within range 4? Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Obviously, because I was able to cast a spell on it. Make a range 4 attack. So it's going to do 2 white die. I am going to dodge. I'm going to exhaust my defensive core to dodge. And then roll my black die. Skull, which means I'm not going to gain any additional defense, so my defense is 10. And it's going to roll its 2 white die and get 5, so it misses. It's a ranged attack, so I can't actually dodge it. It's outside of my attack range. And then after that, it says, then move to be adjacent to the opponent with the most damage within movement range. The only person that's within range is Nightingale right now. And then make an attack with a follow-up of Inflict Poison, Force 9. So in the case of the Force 9, essentially I need to roll Conviction and meet or beat that Force 9, or I'll be poisoned. Poison's pretty nasty in this game, by the way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I actually can't get in range. Oh wait, I can jump. I can jump 2 spaces. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, right there. So I'm going to go ahead and go here and then begin the jump. Okay, it makes the jump. 1, 2. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and goes right here. Actually, let's see, what can I do here? I was right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to go right there. So doing that puts me in defensive terrain, which I can take advantage of. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and make my my melee attack now. I am going to dodge again. I'm just going to roll the white dice there. While that's rolling, I'm going to exhaust my occult shirt and dodge. Alright, so 3 shields plus 1 from the shirt, so 4 additional defense, so 14 in total. And rolled a 9, so it misses. I can now, if you successfully dodge the attack with this dodge, you can counter. So I'm going to go ahead and counter for free. Alright, 9 is enough to hit. It has 8 defense, so it's going to be 1 damage base. And then 2, 4 from the shields, so 5 damage in total. And then 2 books adds 1 magic damage for a total of 6, which is enough to kill. So with that, I go ahead and shuffle this and draw another card. I get 5 gold. 22 gold. And that resolves Cave Sickles. Goes to Zeke next. Zeke is going to go up to 4. Everything else is pretty much resolved. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I could try jumping, but I'm going to wait until I have everyone else around. Jumping's a little dangerous by yourself. The DC for a 1 gap jump is essentially 10. He has an agility of 4, which means there's a chance you can fail it. There's a chance. And failing it would be essentially minus 5 points for us. Alright. I'll go ahead and just get him out of the way. Actually, what I can do is I'm going to put him... You know what? There's fine. That is fine. I'm going to leave him there. I have tons of points that's going to be wasted, but that's fine. Remi goes next. She gains 3 stamina, but the cap is 5, so she goes to 5. People are blocking her way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Alright, so what I can do is I'm going to spend 2 points to fly. So I'm doing Avian Flight. I can move 7 without worrying about terrain or characters or anything like that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Or sorry, 7 right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then I'm going to spend an additional 3 to get 6 additional movement. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that puts her right here. And that'll be it for her turn for right now. Then it's going to go to Rook. Rook will get up to 4. He'll spend 1 to move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like so. So I didn't really need to worry about jumping because I went and just flew over the pit. But essentially what jumping is it's going to be 2 purple die, add your agility. If there's someone, an ally adjacent, they can add their strength to the roll. So in the case of Rook, he can fastball specialty with a +6. And if you beat it, you just land on the space as long as it's within movement range. If you fail, and there's someone adjacent to the endpoint, they can roll a perception against the difficulty level and try to catch. The DC is 10 for 1 gap and +2 for every additional gap. So this going across from here to here is 10, here to here is 12, here to here is 14, and so forth. And if you fail it, you land in the first tile that you tried to jump over. Which, I mean, there's other reasons to use jump. You can use it to jump over water, because water can hinder you and things like that. The only catch about jumping is you can only jump from normal terrain. So if you're like in this terrain here, you can't jump from it. Alright, that is it for Rook. Let's go ahead and reset the initiative. We'll go ahead and add to the time counter. Let's see, we went here, fought here, moved here, missed a turn. It was 1, 2... I think we're at 4 actually. I'm just going to play it safe and say 4. We're making good time regardless. It goes to Rook. Rook is not going to do anything this round. Yeah, we're going to be fine. I'm just going to make sure. We spawned them. We fought them here. Started moving up. Failed to move the stone. They reacted. Next round. We killed them. Moved to... actually, yeah, if we pass turn now, we will be at 4. Alright. So what I'll do with Rook, actually, is I'm going to go ahead and move him down to here. And then it's going to go to Nightingale's turn. Nightingale will go up to 5. All this gets refreshed. She'll spend 1 to move. Go 1, 2, and then she'll jump across here to there. That's going to be a DC of 12. She'll roll 2 purple die. She'll add her agility, which is 5. So that's going to be 10. Or sorry, 8 plus 5 is 13. So that's enough to pass already. And then you would, on top of that, add his strength, which is 6. So it'll be 19 in total. So got that going for us. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I'm going to go ahead and spend an action to loot the chest. Blue loot. You find a pile of treasure, gain 2 random consumables. In addition, finding this box will look good when graded, gain 2 bonus points. So I'll go ahead and note the 2 bonus points. Like so. Alright, with all that said and done, we gotta get 2 consumables. So what we're going to do is we'll shuffle at once and take the top 2. 1 and 2. So, Nightingale here gets a magic bomb and a vitality juice box. I'm going to go ahead and put the magic bomb in the pack, and I do have a slot for the magic juice box. So I'll put that there. Alright, with all that said and done, this gets removed. And that was Nightingale, goes to Zeke. With Zeke, I'm literally just going to take the rest of my turn. So we'll just use up all of his movement. And just go to the blue exit. An adventurer ends their turn on the blue exit. Reveal their reward, restore all adventurers. So at this point, you would go ahead and discard all these here. Get this removed. Go ahead and do that. This will get flipped back. He gets to recover the 1 hit damage he took. And that takes care of all of that. Also, whenever you restore, you can also do free re-equips. So you can actually go and shuffle gear around as necessary. So that's what we're going to actually do right now. We're going to give Rook here a juice box, and we'll give him the other juice box. And then you can take the magic bomb. So now everyone has their consumables filled out, which is good. So that's all we're going to do here. Some things that people may do is they might actually swap armor. They might actually give Zeke one of the occult shirts just so he can have a dodge. I'm not that worried about it, so I'm just gonna stick with what we have right now. So despite the fact that you're kind of started with a specific kit, you do have a few options for moving things around. Anyway, it then says continue to wrong way, page 8, at which point, oh, actually we need to do scoring. We definitely finished within 5 turns. We finished within 5 time tokens easily, even if I miscounted somehow. So 12 points, no one got defeated, and then the cave sickles, we killed 4 in the first area here, and we killed 3 over here. So it was a total of 7 cave sickles. So 14 plus 12 is 26, so we're at 28 on our score. Alright, and then after that, like it was mentioned, we go to page 8, and we would read this stuff here, which is wrong way. We'll do that next time. I'm going to go ahead and call this a video. Now, one thing we can go ahead and do right here, right now, I'm going to go ahead and move these dice over here, like so. Also, it restored, so we actually need to put everything back in the loot deck, like so. Alright, and we're going to put these here real quick, and then click clear. I'll do that. So there you go. Everything has been cleaned up. We're all set up for the continuing with the story. So, I am the Depressed Viewer, and this was Middara on Tabletop Simulator. See you guys next time.